Are you struggling with your food presentation and still can't get your dishes to look like those inexpensive restaurants? This video is for you. I'm going to share my 5 best plating tips to improve your food presentation at home. And if you think I'm just going to tell you the same old advice you have heard 100 times, like using negative space or plating with odd numbers, you are wrong. These tips are ranked from least to most important. So make sure you stay until the end, because the last tip is what separates amateurs from home cooks who actually played like professionals. So let's get started. The first step to making your food looks like art is learn how to work with purees or gels. If you put your purees just on the side of the plate like you were serving sausages with ketchup, no surprise your dishes looks bad. If you want to make a professional looking dishes at home, you have to use purees like professional. Learn to make dots, swipes, quenelles, and other ways to use puree in elegant way. This skill take practice because every puree is unique. When you add cream, oil, or use fruit base, each consistency behave differently. So next time you make a puree, make extra and spend some time training. Once you learn this, you can use it in countless dishes for the rest of your life. Next skill that elevates your food presentation is understanding how to use herbs or microcreases. I spent many years working in the restaurant at the section that prepares herbs for other sections. At the time, I understood the importance of microgreens in plating. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying you can't make amazing dish without herbs. But if you want to elevate your plating in a very easy and cheap way, herbs are the best option. But of course, you have to use the right ones. If you're using thyme or rosemary for decoration, you are still living in 19th century. These herbs are meant for seasoning your food, not for decoration. They taste horrible raw. And you don't need anything super fancy. There are plenty of options, from most basic ones like dill, parsley leaves, coriander leaves, and fennel tops, which you can find in normal grocery store. But if you really want to take a fine dining touch, you need to get hands on microgreens or even edible flowers. There are plenty of options. You can find both online and offline. Now, here is the 4-step pattern you need to follow when using herbs in plating. Step 1. Pick the right type of herb for the dish. Don't overthink it. Just choose something that tastes actually good raw. Step 2. Pick the right size. Too big and it overpowers the plate. Too small and it looks messy. Step 3. Keep them fresh until the last minute. Tired looking herbs will ruin your presentation. Step 4. Position them with intention. Don't just throw them on the plate randomly. Place them carefully, one by one. If you mess up any of this step, the plating won't work. One of the biggest plating mistakes I see when coaching my students is that they don't consider the size of their components. So this is my tip number 3. When you're plating a main course, for example, it's best to create contrast in size. A good plate has a mix of larger components like proteins or vegetables and small decorative elements like crisps or pickles. If everything is too big or too small, proper plating becomes difficult. This also applies to textures. If your puree is too thick, for example, it doesn't matter how good your technique is, it will still look bad. So before you even start plating, think about how different sizes of your components will work together. The right proportions make plating so much easier. Next tip is to think about plating the same way you would think about building a house. You don't just throw bricks next to each other on the ground and call it house. You build structure. You create a balance. The most home cooks just place components next to each other without thinking about height and layering. Here is the secret. Chefs don't just place food on the plate. They stack and layer it to create depth, but in the way that keeps it light and balanced, not make it look heavy. Start with the heaviest component on the bottom and the lightest on the top. Every dish is different, so there is no single formula. But if you combine at least 4 different components into structured composition, your dish will almost always look professional. And by the way, if you're still watching, that means you're serious about plating or you are my biggest fan. Either way, If you're on Instagram, send me your dish and I will give you a few tips. Now, this is the single most important plating tip I can give you. If you want to actually master plating, you need feedback from someone who knows what they are doing. This is what separates people who try to plate fine dining dishes from those who actually master it. Every cook who is great at plating, at some point in their cooking journey, got consistent feedback from a mentor, chef friend, a school, or coach. This is exactly how I learn plating when I work in the restaurants. And this is exactly how I teach my students today. Some time ago, I made a post about this on my Instagram, and someone commented that amateur home cooks on MasterChef learn to plate by themselves. But that's probably not the case. I've coached many people preparing for MasterChef, and even though they are home cooks, they take courses, go to culinary schools, and invest in expert guidance. It's not just because they have a talent, believe me. So find someone who can guide you, and your skills will skyrocket. And if you don't know anyone, check out my website, apply for my coaching, and we can make it happen together. And that's it for today's video. I hope this was helpful. If you learned something new, hit the like button. And if you have any questions about plating, drop them in the comments below. I see you next time.